Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving deep into the world of World War II armor. To bust some long-standing myths, we all know the legends: the invincible Tiger, the revolutionary T-34. But what if I told you that many of these famous tanks, celebrated in movies and video games, were actually engineering and logistical nightmares? Propaganda and a healthy dose of nostalgia have painted a picture that's far from the gritty reality. These steel beasts were often more dangerous to their own crews than to the enemy, so buckle up as we peel back the layers of myth and expose the disastrous truth behind these iconic war machines. Let's start with the fan favorite, the Soviet T-34. It's often hailed as the tank that won the war on the Eastern Front, credited with revolutionary, sloped armor and incredible production numbers. And while it's true that the Soviets built a staggering number of them, the story isn't that simple. The T-34 was a deeply flawed machine, especially in its early versions. Many of these tanks literally fell apart before they even saw combat. The quality control was abysmal. You had poor quality welds that would crack under pressure, or even cause fuel and oil to leak into the crew compartment. Inside, things were even worse. The two-man turret was a critical design flaw. It forced the tank commander to also act as the gunner, a massive workload that made it nearly impossible to effectively command the vehicle, spot targets, and engage the enemy all at once. Compare this to the German three-man turrets, where a dedicated commander focused solely on tactical awareness. The T-34's optics were notoriously poor, like looking through a muddy bottle, and most early models didn't even have a radio. Imagine trying to coordinate an attack when you can't talk to the tank next to you. And the gearbox, it was so crude and difficult to use. The drivers often had to carry a hammer to literally bash the gears into place. So, while the T-34's sloped armor could bounce shells, its numerous shortcomings made it a death trap for many of its crews. Its real strength wasn't its quality, but its sheer overwhelming quantity. Now, let's cross the channel and look at a British legend, the Sherman Firefly. This was Britain's desperate answer to the powerful German tanks. They took a standard American AM for Sherman, and she warned in the incredibly potent 17-pounder anti-tank gun. On paper, it was a genius move. The 17-pounder could punch through the frontal armor of a Tiger or Panther from a reasonable distance, something the standard Sherman 75mm gun can only dream of. But this upgrade came at a steep price. To fit the massive gun and its breach into the Sherman's turret, major sacrifices had to be made. First, the radio, a vital piece of communication equipment, was kicked out of the turret and stuck in a box welded onto the back. This meant the loader had to turn his back on the gun to operate the radio, a dangerous distraction in the middle of a fight. The gun's large breech also made the turret incredibly cramped, making it a nightmare for the loader to handle the long, heavy ammunition. And then there was the muzzle flash. The 17-pounder produced an enormous blinding flash and a huge cloud of dust and smoke every time it fired. This not only temporarily blinded the gunner, making it hard to see if the shot it, but it also acted as a giant shoot here sign for every enemy tank and anti-tank gun in the area. Firefly crews knew this, and they were often the first targets in any engagement. It was a powerful but deeply compromised design, a rush fix that highlighted the Allies' struggle to counter German armor. Alright, let's address the elephant in the room, the German Tiger I. There is no tank more mythologized, more feared than the Tiger. Its reputation as an invincible land battleship persists to this day, and yes, its 88mm gun and thick frontal armor were terrifyingly effective when a Tiger was in the right place at the right time. And actually working, it was a formidable opponent. The keyword there is working, because the Tiger was, from a mechanical and logistical standpoint, an absolute disaster. This tank was a maintenance hog. It spent more time in the workshop than on the front lines. Its complex inner leaf road wheel system, designed to distribute its massive weight, was a nightmare for mechanics. Mud and snow would get packed between the wheels, freezing solid in the Russian winter. and immobilizing the tank. Changing a single inner road wheel could take hours, if not an entire day. The engine was powerful, but the transmission was notoriously weak and prone to failure. The Tiger was also a gas guzzler of epic proportions, consuming fuel at an alarming rate, which was a huge problem for Germany's already strained supply lines. It was so heavy that it couldn't cross most bridges, and if it broke down or got stuck, recovering the 57-ton beast was a monumental task, often requiring 2 or 3 of Germany's heaviest recovery vehicles. In essence, the Tiger was a masterpiece of over-engineering and a logistical black hole. It was a tactical titan but a strategic failure, consuming vast resources for very limited operational availability. Following the Tiger, German engineers developed the Panther. Many historians consider the Panther to be the world's first true main battle tank, blending mobility, protection, and firepower in a way that would define tank design for decades. In an excellent slope frontal armor inspired by the T-34, and a long high-velocity 75mm gun that was arguably better than the Tiger's 88mm. At long range, it was a truly advanced design. The problem: it was rushed into service before it was ready. The Panther's combat debut with the Battle of Kursk was a catastrophe. Of the 200 Panthers sent into battle, the vast majority broke down before even reaching the enemy. The biggest issues were with its final drives and engine. The final drives, which transfer power to the tracks, were so fragile they were rated to last only about 150 kilometers before failing. The engine was also prone to overheating and catching fire, a terrifying prospect for the crew inside. The side armor was also surprisingly thin, making it vulnerable to flank attacks from even older Soviet tanks and anti-tank rifles. Another critical flaw was its slow turret traverses, which was hydraulically powered. If the engine died, the crew had to crank the turret by hand, which was agonizingly slow and practically useless in a fast-paced battle. The Panther was a glimpse of the future of tank design, but it was a future that arrived too soon, a brilliant concept crippled by a rushed and unreliable execution. Finally, we arrive at the pinnacle of Germany's wartime delusion, the King Tiger, or Tiger II. If the Tiger I was over-engineered, the King Tiger was pure fantasy. The 70-ton behemoth was designed to be completely impervious from the front mounting, an even more powerful version of the 88mm gun. It was the embodiment of the Nazi obsession with bigger, heavier and more powerful wonder weapons. But in reality, it was one of the worst tanks of the war. The King Tiger used a slightly modified version of the same engine that was already struggling in the 60-ton Panther, and a 70-ton tank. It was catastrophically underpowered. The power-to-weight ratio was abysmal, leading to constant engine and transmission failures. It was incredibly slow with terrible off-road mobility, and it drank even more fuel than the Tiger I. Its sheer size and weight magnified all of the logistical problems of its predecessor. It was too wide for many tunnels and too heavy for almost any bridge in Europe, severely limiting its strategic mobility. Commanders had to plan entire operations around where these tanks could physically go. To make matters worse, as the war dragged on, the quality of German steel armor declined. Due to a lack of Kiowas, the later King Tiger armor became brittle and was prone to spalling, where even a non-penetrating hit could cause deadly shards of steel to break off from the interior wall. The King Tiger was less of a weapon and more of a monument to a failing ideology, as slow, unreliable, resource-draining monster that had no place on the modern battlefield. So there you have it, from the T-34 to the King Tiger. The stories of these legendary tanks are far more complex than the myths suggest. They were products of their time, born from desperate circumstances, flawed engineering, and logistical nightmares. Their true history reminds us that wars are not won by wonder weapons, but by reliable equipment, solid logistics, and well-trained crews. The real heroes of tank warfare were often the mechanics, who had to keep these broken beasts running, and the crews who had to fight in them, fully aware of their deadly flaws. Thanks for watching, everyone. What are some other military myths you'd like to see us debunk? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next video. Until next time, stay curious.